Going to church has always been part of my Sunday routine for as long as I can remember. I remember waking up early every Sunday morning just so that I wouldn't miss going to Sunday school. Although I grew up going to church my whole life, like many other Christians with a similar background, I never understood my faith. It really felt like a weekly routine. My mother was the Christian of the family, and she would always be the one who would try to get me more involved in the church. I remember clearly that as a Sunday school teacher, she would often volunteer me to help out in our church's annual vacation Bible school. And as someone who felt the obligation to do something for God, I would find myself just going with it. Now, I have to admit that it was those opportunities that grew my interest and curiosity in God. The idea of God painted in the Christian Bible continued to intrigue me. My faith started because of my family, but it grew into more curiosity because I started hearing the many amazing testimonies of other Christians on how accepting Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior transformed their life. I wanted to experience such life-changing moments too. So, I started to seek for moments that I thought could not have been achieved out of my own effort, but would require some sort of divine intervention. Wanting to believe that God was hard at work in my life, I started to associate the academic hurdles I overcame as part and parcel of God's invisible hand orchestrating my footsteps. I strongly believe that everything that happened not because of mere coincidence or due to my individual effort, but rather it was all God. Whenever my non-Christian friends would approach me and ask me about the reason I have faith, my go-to answer would be about how God helped me in my academia. Unfortunately, as much as I desired to save many through my testimony, it never got to my friends. I would constantly reach out to them to check out a church event I would have. They would come. In fact, they would join those events often enough that they even knew my friends at church. However, the faith did not make sense to them, and they were not convinced as to why Jesus was the one. I still kept on trying anyways, holding on to a small glimmer of hope that maybe something will tug them. All I had to do was to keep on trying. As my desire grew for wanting to reach the lost, I joined a Christian non-profit group that was separate from my church that specialized in outreach. I would spend my school breaks doing outreach work. Even after high school and prior to going into university, I worked in ministry full-time for half a year. I was really excited and hoped to gain more guts, drive, and also skill to evangelize to people who did not know about Jesus. In the mornings, we will receive training and discussion based off of the Word of God, and in the afternoons, sometimes all the way till midnight, we will go out and street evangelize in neighborhood basketball courts, futsal courts, and open fields, trying to reach out to the lost. I hope that through volunteering for such a cause, I could understand more of the apostles' heart to share the gospel. While there were situations where I felt tired or unwell, I am always reminded of Paul's struggles in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, where he boasts about having to go through being in prison, being flogged, in danger, hungry, and gone without sleep. My experience could not compare to the apostles of the past. More than anything, I hope that my effort could perhaps inspire the heavens to bring my friends whom I love to the faith. As I continued to outreach, I started meeting many different kinds of individuals. As I tried to share the message of Christ, it wasn't too new for them. In fact, many of them were immune to the Christian message because it was always the same old message that was shared to them. Despite hearing the Christian message several times, it never really made sense to them. In fact, some of them would have enough of it. I was confused. How could the Christian message, the act of a blameless person, Christ, dying on our behalf not move them to tears to want to at least give this faith a shot? It did not make sense to me. But as I continued to converse with the people, I started to notice something. The Christian message that was told to them over and over again always painted Christ's sacrifice on the cross. To many, this message did not sound too different from many other events and stories outside of Christianity. In fact, that also made me wonder what made my faith so special, so different, and so unique. What made it the one true faith? As I continued to volunteer my time for the church and the work of outreach, I noticed that my zeal and passion for God started to dwindle. It didn't help that my grades suffered. Things in general started to go downhill. But I knew that it would be wrong to put my service for God on pause. I knew that despite my struggles, I needed to do as much as I could for God to repay the grace I have received. So I pushed myself to continue to do what I considered to be right. Fast forward to a few months later, I graduated from high school and moved on to university. Because my grades weren't great, I had to pursue my education overseas. I had to move to a completely new environment and culture, and because of that switch, I had no choice but to start from scratch in terms of getting involved in a faith community. Now, I had to really start from scratch. I had to first find and integrate myself into a Christian community that I could see myself growing in. Then, I can think about serving and volunteering. I checked out several, but I never saw myself growing in them. In fact, I was very disappointed by how shallow the teachings were in the places I visited. I was really praying that God would be able to guide my footsteps to a place that will help me in my knowledge and understanding of Him, especially with all the encounters I had doing outreach back home. One day, a family friend reached out. He had overheard that I disliked the various groups and churches I checked out. He introduced me to a casual Bible study he was doing with a friend. Out of desperation, I decided to check it out. I didn't think too much of how the first meeting went, but I could tell that the person who led the study was very well versed in the Word of God. I decided to try it a few more times. But as I continued meeting, my eyes towards the Word of God opened. Now, as someone who grew up and actively served at church, the studies really opened up my eyes for the first time to see how amazing the Word of God was. In fact, the study helped address the many subtle doubts that were planted in my mind during my days serving in outreach ministry. The level of depth and understanding of the Bible was exactly what I was looking for and needed. What was so amazing about being able to discover the Bible in a new way was that my hope was so clear to me now. It was because of the understanding of the Word that now I see my prior life of faith was one based on ignorance. In Romans chapter 10, verses 2 to 3, Paul speaks to his brothers saying, "For I can testify about them that they are zealous for God, but their zeal is not based on knowledge. Since they did not know the righteousness of God and sought to establish their own, they did not submit to God's righteousness." Looking back, my life of faith was definitely one that had zeal, but no knowledge. Looking back, I was definitely navigating through this life of faith by my own direction, thinking that it was God's righteousness. Looking back, I really knew nothing. I don't think I was really a believer. I didn't have anything concrete to base my life of faith on. But now, I'm glad. I'm glad that God heard my plea and answered it. I'm glad that now I serve God without having to worry about what may happen in my life. I know that my hope is placed on something great. And because I know my hope, I'm able to bring more people successfully to the true God. But more than that, because I finally understand the Word, I am able to call myself a true daughter of God. Although my journey towards God has been a long and windy one, I know that this is all part and parcel of God's orchestration to lead me to where I am today, a believer that can confidently call my faith my own.
Hey, mortal friends! Thanks for visiting us at EZBible. Don't forget to click the like and the subscribe button. God bless.